Oh my God, it's been raining all week. That's where I wish I was right now. Hello, fellow shut-ins. It is day 8 in the Bay Area's shelter-in-place and day 4 of the statewide one. And everybody's just kind of settling in and buckling down for what's going to be a pretty long quarantine. I think in general, everybody's spirits are good, and at least in my household, no one has majorly pissed anyone else off yet. Over the years, one of the most common questions I get from viewers who are interested in vacationing in San Francisco is, how do I blend in best? And the best way I know how is to pick up how to speak like a local. So in that spirit, here is the first of the videos in my quarantine series, Speak Like a Local Places Edition. First and foremost, the one thing that I harp about again and again, and yet tourists persistently do this, is shorten San Francisco to San Fran or Frisco. No self-respecting local would do this. And for us, it's literally like nails down a chalkboard. Of course, we're just too polite to say anything, so we'll smile at you, and inside our brains we'll be like, if saying San Francisco is too long, it is acceptable to shorten it down to SF. Just like in Los Angeles, you would shorten it to LA. Bay Area residents just call it the city, as in, what part of the city do you live in? Or, I'm heading up to the city for a show, if you don't actually live in SF. On that topic, the neighboring city of Oakland is called the town, although that's not as common as the city, especially by residents who don't actually live in Oakland. And then anything south of San Francisco is referred to as the South Bay by San Franciscans, even though if you actually lived in the South Bay, you would further distinguish that into the peninsula, which is that cluster of suburbs that is located on the peninsula, of which San Francisco is perched on top of, from the actual South Bay, which is the broader San Jose metropolitan area at the base of the bay. And for the record, Silicon Valley only refers to San Jose and not to San Francisco. Second, learn the proper pronunciation of San Francisco streets and neighborhoods. Although this one is a little bit more forgivable because the Bay Area is just filled with transplants, like me, who are always mispronouncing things. I've lived here for 22 years and I still sound like a noob sometimes. Here are some of the more egregious ones. This is a high traffic north-south street that connects Pacific Heights and Marina to downtown, and it's used frequently by locals to access the freeway. Out-of-towners will tend to pronounce this the Dutch way, go, because of the famous painter, Van Gogh. But in fact, this is pronounced Gough, which is a Welsh name. Fun fact, it was named after Charles H. Gough, who was a milkman that served on the 1855 committee to name San Francisco streets. And that's how he was able to get his name immortalized. This is a major street that runs first through Chinatown and then down through the financial district. It was named after a General Kearny from the Mexican-American War, but Kearny is now the wrong pronunciation. Then there's also Kearny, which is the way that I pronounce it, and that's also wrong. The correct way to pronounce it is Kearny. Simple explanation, the locals have just mispronounced it over the centuries, and that's what you got now. You might have your Uber driver drop you off here on your way to Golden Gate Park. The street was named after a Portuguese explorer by the name of João Rodrigues Cabrillo. But Richmond residents pronounce it the anglicized way, Cabrillo. And the weird pronunciation applies to places as well. This is the original factory site of this famous San Francisco chocolatier, although nowadays it's a shopping mall. They do still have a soda fountain here, though, where they serve these ginormous sundaes and sell chocolate gifts. This name tourists constantly struggle with, and I've heard it alternately as Ghirardelli with a soft G and Ghirardelli with a hard G. Actually, locals debate this as well, but the correct answer is it's Ghirardelli with a hard G, according to their corporate video. This is the tiniest micro neighborhood in San Francisco, and it's located right below Market and borders the Castro, the Mission, and the Lower Haight. And you'll probably pass through it on your way to the Castro. So if you are English or are very familiar with English names, you'll probably want to pronounce it Debosi. But here in San Francisco, we pronounce it Dubose. It was named after Victor Dubose, who was on the Board of Supervisors. Okay, this is one of San Francisco's southern neighborhoods that is very popular with the younger alternative set. It's trendy exactly because it's untrendy, if you know what I mean. This used to be Bernal Ranch, and the original rancher was Hispanic because at that time, California was a part of Mexico, but we don't pronounce it the Spanish way. We actually pronounce it Bernal Heights. And then this area to the west is another one of those trendy but untrendy neighborhoods, but is a lot more upscale than Bernal Heights and is filled with tech millionaires. Looking at that name, you'll probably be tempted to pronounce it as No Valley, like toe. But in fact, it's pronounced No-we. You pronounce the E on the end, so Noe Valley. And then up in Snowman Napa, if you're heading up to northern Napa, this is a very popular destination and home to some well-known wineries like Beringer and Charles Krug. If you're familiar with Greek mythology, you'll probably be tempted to call this St. Helena. But it's not. It's pronounced St. Helena with a long E. And if you're driving up the Sonoma coastline, you'll more than likely stop here for its lighthouse, the fantastic coastal views, and its rustic farms and cheese creameries like Cowgirl Creamery. So a lot of the transplants and the tourists as well tend to call this Point Reyes. And that seems to be the more popular pronunciation, although most locals who've been there for a very long time still call it Point Reyes. Third, despite being only 7 miles by 7 miles, San Francisco is subdivided into like a bajillion neighborhoods and micro neighborhoods. Interestingly, some of them have the article the appended to the front of it, like the Tenderloin. Although in general, the is never appended to the front. I don't know the reason why, there's no particular rhyme or reason to it, so you'll just kind of have to listen to which ones have the in front of them. Some neighborhoods are referred to as districts because they are so large that they're in effect their own municipal districts. So you'll oftentimes hear Mission District, Financial District, Sunset District, Richmond District, but this is pretty loose because there are definitely smaller neighborhoods that are also called districts, like the Castro District. On the other hand, there are some neighborhoods that will never have the word district tacked on to the end of it. Not that it's a hard, fast rule, but usually if there's 2 words in the name, like Glen Park or the Lower Haight. And finally, San Francisco neighborhoods and districts are constantly remaking themselves and taking on new names. So it's not that uncommon for an area to be referenced in more than one way, especially by longtime natives who probably grew up here when that area was called something completely different. For example, Alamo Square Historic District, where the Painted Ladies are located, was only established in 2015, and so periodically you might hear some locals reference it as Western Addition, which is the broader neighborhood that it is located in. Or a recent practice, which is to shorten the name so that it's easier to pronounce, like Financial District is FIDI, though I personally like to call it Findy because it rolls off the tongue better. Funny how San Francisco has all these weird quirks. Right? For the locals out there, are there other quirky street and neighborhood predilections about San Francisco that you've noticed? And if you're tuning in from other parts of the US or out there in the broader world, does your town have predilections that are just as funky? I love these types of random trivia, and we'll do another fun one for the next episode. And if you have some great ideas for topics that you want to see covered, drop me a comment. See ya! Peace out. If that information was valuable to you, please help me make it available to more people. Subscribe by hitting that red subscribe button down below, or like the video by hitting the thumbs up icon. Thanks so much.